Welcome to Discover and Sketch Beavers with me, Christine Elder, and you guys tuning in from all over the world. So most of you know me. I'm Christine Elder. I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist from Central Oregon, where the beaver is our state mammal. And so why beavers and why now? Well, like I said, it's our state mammal here in Oregon, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, one of the reasons why. And it's also our mascot for Oregon State University. Okay. And so another reason is they serve as really valuable keystone species. And we'll talk about some of the reasons they're important and how they modify their habitat in a little bit. So today's plan is, of course, we're going to talk about beavers and introduce them as members of the rodent family. And we're going to practice some quick sketching. Okay, and so the distributions and habitats of these guys. So, like I said, in the blue are the northern North American beavers, and then in the red are the others. Now, you might see a little blue over there in Europe as well, and there should be some red down in South America, or some blue down in South America too, where North American beavers were introduced and are now a non-native species. But so beavers evolved, the family evolved over here over 10 million years ago. And then our species of North American beaver came over across here when there was still land bridges. And they've been over here for at least 7 million years. And one of the reasons, So one of the reasons that we're talking about beavers and we love them so much here in Oregon is the oldest fossils in the world of a beaver are right here in my home state of Oregon. They're 7 million years old. Now, where do beavers live? Well, of course, they're an aquatic animal, so they're always associated with aquatic areas. Not so much larger lakes or tiny streams, but generally kind of medium-sized ponds and rivers. All the way, like we saw here, from Alaska down into northern Mexico and coast to coast, everywhere except where we've got these deserty regions. And of course, yeah, they have to have water to build their lodges and their dams. And so just more beautiful habitat shots there. Here in Oregon, we're lucky to have a lot of wetlands, especially on the western side of the Cascades. So what are their relationships with humans? Well, they have been persecuted actually since medieval times. And this is a painting from a medieval manuscript showing a hunt. And they've got the wolves or dogs helping them hunt. So they've been hunted for their meat, their fur for thousands of years. And of course, they nearly went extinct. Their fur is very warm, of course, so it kept not only them warm in their aquatic habitats, but people as well. So, coats were made out of them. In fact, I forgot to show you that. I have a coat that was my grandmother's that was either beaver or mink. Very beautiful. And then these hats, of course, like the beaver tail hat. So yeah, they almost went extinct. And of course, like I was saying, during the Ice Age, there was a beaver that lived here in North America as well as in Europe called the giant beaver. And it was 7 feet long and 250 pounds. And this is a classic painting by a famous artist, Charles Robert Knight, who was an American wildlife and paleo artist. So best known for his detailed paintings of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Yeah. So they're the state mammal of both Oregon and New York. And there were many members of this family throughout the millennia. So all of those have gone extinct in the family except just two. And so there's a rich fossil record. Yeah. And so we just have two now. Okay, so looking at the bigger picture of who they belong to the order Rodentia. So, of course, class Mammalia, order Rodentia. And oh, yeah, let me get rid of my face here. My face is in the way. There we go. So, a lot of members of that order you're probably familiar with. And some of them I've sketched with you guys before, the ones that are in asterisk, like the kangaroo rats, tree squirrels, naked mole rats. But here in Oregon and across a lot of areas in Europe as well, we've got beaver, mountain beaver, porcupine, marmots, woodchucks, squirrels, chipmunks, prairie dogs, and muskrat. And some of these do share the same habitats, and sometimes it's easy to get them mixed up with each other. Like here on the Deschutes River in Oregon, we have muskrats. Wait, am I circling that? We have muskrats in the water. We have marmots nearby on the stream banks. We have mountain beavers, and then of course the beaver, porcupines near but not in the water generally. And then river otters too. So all of those can look really similar to each other, especially if you don't have something next to them for size. But the beaver is going to be the largest, and it is the world's second largest mammal. A rodent, right behind South America's capybara. Okie dokie. So that's an example of some of the rodents just in that family. And that name rodent comes from the Latin rodere, which means to gnaw. And so they lifestyle is adopted for eating a wide variety of foods, generally herbivores. So seeds, nuts, grains, fruits, leaves, even small invertebrates. But of course, our beaver is a herbivore strictly. And they had this really unique tooth structure. So if you found one of these skulls out in the forest, maybe in the riparian area near a river or pond, you would know exactly what it was. And so rodents have a pair of incisors up above and below, and they are ever growing and they're self-sharpening. So they need to have that so that they can keep on eating, because the food they eat, like the bark and other really hard tree cambium and such, would wear down teeth if they weren't continuously growing. So all the rodents share that characteristic. So yeah, they lack enamel on the back of the tooth, and that's how they are self-sharpening. When they come together to chew, they just happen to self-sharpen because of that. And then you'll notice there's this huge gap, a diastema, between those incisors and then their molars. And so that allows them to actually kind of close their lips here behind their teeth so that they don't get a lot of wood chips in their mouth. And also for beavers, they can chew underwater without drowning. Okay. And then you can see these huge jaw bone areas here where the masseter muscles connect, and they're very, very strong, especially in the beavers. Now, this is not a beaver, of course. This is another member of the rodent family, but the order has 4 fingers, so you can see them spread out really well here on the squirrel, and 5 toes, so you can see them down there. So, as usual, when we're drawing things, we want to think about their anatomy and really notice them and look at them from all different positions. So most rodents have quite large ears for listening and large eyes for seeing, because of course they serve as prey for lots of animals. And then a really good sense of smell and really big whiskers, especially those that are nocturnal, which many rodents are, including beavers. So within that rodent order, we have the family Castoridae. And so that, again, nowadays just includes the 2 species that we have here now. And they originally evolved, believed to have evolved as burrowers, and then later they became aquatic. And like I said, they actually, yeah, Ginny says the squirrels are digging up almost everything I plant. That's funny. Yeah. So anyway, the whole family evolved, and in North America, and but the our species was actually thought to have evolved in Europe and then came over here later. And like I said, the oldest fossils are here in Oregon, 7 million years old. Okay, so some more physical characteristics, again, for their aquatic lifestyle and herbivory. So things you're going to want to notice. And again, here's a skull. Recently at our local museum, the High Desert Museum, they had a whole exhibit on beavers. And that was another reason I got inspired to sketch beavers. And teach you guys about them. So here they are. And oh, yeah, I wanted to mention that they've got these kind of rust colored teeth, and that is from iron, mineral iron, and that helps to strengthen their teeth. And then, of course, we always want to know the skeleton. And of course, again, this is a different rodent, but just noticing like this arched back, that's that arch of the vertebral column. And noticing the back legs here, you can see that's the knee right there, right there. And here we've got the elbow right here and the elbow right here. So, and then they kind of usually have sort of a kind of a Roman nose, like some horses do. So, and then very large eyes. So I know it's hard sometimes when we're drawing mammals, especially super fluffy and furry mammals, to be able to see any kind of structure and to be able to show any kind of highlights and shadows. But if you can, again, understand the skeleton, you'll understand a little bit more what to add in there. Okay. And so, yeah, so here's, again, here's a great skeleton here, and you can see how wide they can open their mouth and then grip with their very strong forepaws, the tree. And then noticing also the backbone continues into a tail. And so those tail vertebrae go all the way down into that fleshy tail, which is quite unique. So, I'm showing you these pictures from the museum and just reminding you that museums are a great place to sketch, right? And so often you go to a museum or an aquarium, they will have maybe both live versions of an animal as well as taxidermied specimens and skeletons. And so if you can combine all three of those things, that's the best. Like at our High Desert Museum, I don't think we have a beaver right now, but we do have otters. So it's just great to be able to do that. So tell me in the chat box if you ever go to zoos or aquariums or natural history museums and sketch. Okay. All right. And so, again, kind of here's just really quick versions of what I expect folks to be able to do in the field and from the videos I'm going to show you. So just light and loose. Okay. And then back to anatomy. So these are some pretty mid-last century sketches, but you can see the four paws. There's four toes and four nails. And then the back paw has five, and those are webbed to help them with the swimming, of course, because they spend most of their time swimming. And then they've got this flattened tail, which is not furred and is covered with these kind of zigzaggy scales. And it's really unique in just being super large and fat. And it's often filled with fat because when a beaver is feeding during the spring and summer and fall, really actively eating all their food in their habitat, they can store extra fat in their tail for the lean months. Hi, Trina. You say you haven't sketched at a museum yet, but it's definitely on the plan to-do list. Great. Okay, and then here again, looking at as many angles as you can when you're going to sketch something, whether it's these photos or videos, or if you happen to see a live animal at a zoo or aquarium or even in the wild, just as much observation of them before you start sketching, the better. So again, here, often you're going to see them in this pose if they're on the ground, because they'll have their two paws kind of up in the air and maybe grasping a trunk or a limb or chewing on a twig. And then you can partially see that webbing between those back toes. And then that tail again with the tailbone vertebrae going all the way to the end. So it's very strong. And again, here's just another version. So sometimes they can bring their tail in front under them here. And here's a good view of where you can see their hands and their feet really well, and their nails. And here as well, grasping this stick or whatever it's eating. And there's a great view of the tail. So you can see that you could draw some sort of, what do you call them? Cross hatching to emulate a tail. And so that tail is very strong, like I said, and seeing that tail in the water will help you a lot when you're trying to identify this like a swimming mammal in the water compared to the tail of like an otter or a muskrat. So, of course, these guys are a lot bigger than muskrats, but when you see something swimming alone without any reference, it's kind of hard to tell how big something is. So anyway, look for that big tail, and that big muscular tail not only helps to be a rudder to stabilize them, like a rubber rudder of a boat, but it also helps when they're swimming, and they use this as an alarm. They can snap it really quickly, slap it on the water. And I remember once when I was working for a summer in Idaho, and we were swimming in this really big, wide, slow river. It must have been about 30 feet across and at least 10 feet deep, but really slowly moving, almost like a pond. And so we were swimming, me and my field mates, because we were taking a break from field work, and we saw a beautiful big beaver like this. And it was kind of swimming around on the top. And then somebody let their dog into the water, and it was chasing it. And the beaver tended to kind of just seemed like it was playing with the dog, because what would happen is the dog would paddle over and get within like a foot of the beaver, and the beaver would slap its tail really sharply against the water and spook the dog, and then he'd dive under. And beavers can stay underwater for several minutes. I've read different reports. Some say like 5, some people say 15 minutes, but they can stay underwater a long time to be able to escape predators. And they can swim quite a ways too, and quite fast, which is about 5 miles an hour. But anyway, we saw this beaver coming back up and down more often than it really had to. And it seemed like it was almost taunting the dog, because the dog would keep coming where it would see the beaver pop up in another part of the lake, or like the river, and then the dog would come over and it would slap its tail again. So that was pretty funny. Okay, so let's keep going. All righty. And again, another view here showing how they can bring their tail forward. And, you know, when this was from an exhibit again, now remember that when you're drawing from taxidermied specimens, you kind of have to think about it that taxidermy is an art form, and there are definitely people that were better at it than others. And the art form of taxidermy has really evolved over the decades. So things that are taxidermied more recently look a lot more realistic. The other day, when I went to an educational event with our local wildlife group, they had a taxidermied beaver. His name was Woody, of course, um, as in wood. But he was taxidermied quite realistically. But again, that's just something to keep in mind, that you want to, when you're sketching, you might want to note, if you're sketching from a taxidermied specimen or from a photo or video or from an animal live in the field. Okay, so here we go. All right, so a little bit more about their behavior. I think we pretty much went over their physical characteristics. So their behavior now. And of course, we talked about the behavior of chewing on trees, and they do that to remove the bark, and then they eat mainly the soft inner parts. And I showed you that. Sorry, here I am again. I showed you that. Here is one of the trees. This actually came from my next door neighbor's house. So you can see they can cut down trees of all different sizes, from just saplings like this to pretty massive trees that are at least like a foot across. It just takes them longer. And then here are some of the wood chips. And they also use these wood chips to line their nest inside their lodge. So yeah, that's their main behavior. And of course, some people don't like beavers because of that. And of course, that was another reason they were persecuted and hunted, not only for their fur and meat, but just because farmers and ranchers didn't like them cutting down their trees. And people still don't like that. So, of course, there are measures you can do, humane measures to keep beavers off of your property if you live near the river, like many of us do here. And if you have that kind of issue, try to find your local wildlife rescue group. And at least the one we have here in Bend will sometimes come out to your property and help you to mitigate for beaver damage and help you to wrap the trees properly and keep the beavers from eating your trees. Oh, Jacqueline, yeah, sorry you're late. No worries. You can always come back and watch the replay from the beginning. Okay, so we're talking about behavior. Now, what do they eat? They have a lot of different foods they like to eat. Of course, around here we have a ton of aspens, like is pictured here. But they also like poplars, willows, birches, cottonwoods, maples, all those trees that are kind of wetland and riparian species. And they will, they'll eat the leaves and the stems. And then they'll also, of course, use those to build their dams and their lodges. And here's another really cool historic drawing from the early 1900s. And they have very perfectly shown these beautiful back feet that are webbed and the front toes, which aren't, and a nice side view there with good contrast of the teeth. So, and then another view of the teeth, and then the tail. So this is a really nice drawing that can just help you to think about when you're drawing something, to draw things from different angles, so that you can really remember, all the anatomy and behaviors. Now, beavers do create family units for reproduction purposes and protection purposes. So they are quite territorial. And a group of them is called a colony, and it will consist of the oldest pair. That's the breeding pair, and those are generally monogamous as long as each of them live. So over the years, they will generally stay in the same area, and then they will have their kits. And then usually those kits or babies will grow into yearlings, and they'll be part of the colony. And then by the time the young are about 2 years old, they will start to migrate up or downstream to try to find their own habitat. And so when you're kind of thinking about beavers, let me see if I have another picture. Oh yeah, here's the little babies. Can you see the little baby kit? Isn't it cute? And so they breed during the winter time, and then their gestation is about 3 months, and they can have about 1 to 6 kits. What else was I going to say about that? Yeah, and then they birth in the spring. And then, all spring and summer and fall, they're feeding. The whole colony is feeding and eating and defending their territory. They will have scent glands. They have really unique scent glands, several types, where they will mark their territories to protect them from other beavers. And then they'll start storing in the fall extra food inside of their dens. And then during the winter, they'll stay in their den, eating from that larder that's in the den, as well as from sticks and branches that they have kind of squished into the mud in the pond surrounding them. And they can live about 10 years in the wild and up to 30 years in captivity. Jay, yeah, I'm not sure about relocating beavers, but I do know that our local groups, they just do help you to think about planting the right kind of species and how to do fencing and how to put the deterrents around the trees that beavers really like. So that kind of thing. And yeah. Oh, Ginny says some of the historical drawings show the beaver being very large. Well, yeah, maybe. Now, some of those drawings might have been related um, to depicting the giant beaver. So again, remember, millions of years ago, there were a lot of species in this Castoridae family, and they've all gone extinct except one in North America and one in Europe. And so the older ones were larger, just like sloths. If you were in my sloth workshop last year, you knew that sloths also evolved here and were ground dwelling and giant. There was one called the giant ground sloth. So a lot of species, especially during the Ice Age, had reached epic proportions. And of course, many of those went extinct, and we're not sure whether it was climate change from the Ice Age or whether it was hunters coming into, especially North America during the last 20,000 years. Yes, we don't know. Cindy says, is the winter behavior considered hibernation? No, they don't hibernate. They do stay in their den mainly, and they live off of the stores of saplings and they've collected, kind of like a pica. And also they live off the fat in their body and in their tails if times become really lean. Cindy, yes, groundhogs do hibernate. Yes, in fact, we have lots of groundhogs here, or marmots as we call them here, right in the same habitats, not right in the water, but in the cliffs near the river. And we can always tell when it's spring here when they come out, and all of the babies come out. So it's kind of similar to beavers that they have their young in the spring in their lodges. And so just yesterday when I was driving by the marmot habitat here, I saw 10 babies, or I think maybe they call them kits too, marmots, I'm not sure, but they were only about this big, and they were all grazing on the lawn that was in front of the big boulders that they had been hibernating in. So that was super cute. Okay. Okay, and so, what was I saying? Oh yeah, and they are nocturnal, but sometimes you'll see one out during the day. I've seen them out in the evening, so they're kind of crepuscular. And I've also seen them this winter in the snow when they were making their way up the bank and across the trail and over to my friend's yard where they cut down that tree I showed you. So they are nocturnal, partly, to avoid predators. They have lots of predators, but none of them that really specialize in them. It's more kind of opportunistic. So wolves, coyotes, mountain lions, bears, even larger hawks. And they would probably generally go for the kits, which are easier to catch. Okay. Okay, so one unique thing, well, one of the many unique things about beavers are their dams and lodges. And so beavers are one of the few animals that actually modify their habitats. And I would even say one of the few animals that uses tools. So I was really lucky once in, where was I? The Rocky Mountains of Colorado. And one evening I was on a hike and I came up to a lodge like this. This is a photo from midday, but I was there at dusk, and I was able to quietly watch the beavers working on their dam and their lodge. And it was amazing how dexterous they are. And so I was able to watch them. They were actually, like cutting things down, and then they would actually take their paws and put the piece of the sapling or branch into the dam that they were building. And then I would see them dive under the water and get a big handful of mud. And they would bring that mud up to the top next to the lodge, and they would actually go like this and push it into, the woven group of sticks and saplings. And it was so amazing. And they really reminded me of like the great apes that use tools. It was amazing how dexterous they were. So that was really cool. Yeah, Cindy, it was so cool. And I do have a blog post that I wrote about that. Let me see. Let me put it here. I'm going to put that in the chat box. My whole story I wrote about that. So it was really cool. Okay, so anyway, so here, of course, they make the two structures. They make dams and they make lodges. And the lodges, this is the lodge. So, they're pretty obvious to be able to see. They get pretty big. They're kind of like triangular. They could be up to like 6 feet high by 12 feet around. And, they have to be really high because the beavers actually have an underwater entrance that they come in under here, and then it's hollow inside, and that's where they actually live. So that hollow part is above the water line so they don't get wet. And they also, line that with wood chips to keep them warmer. And then they also store some of their food in there for the winter. So they work on those for years and years, kind of like a bald eagle. Not all birds will keep their same nest year after year, but some birds, like bald eagles, will keep building on it year after year. And it's the same thing with the beavers. So, they've got a variety of shapes and sizes and species of trees, like from these back here, aspens and poplars and willows that they use. And they'll use the smaller sapling branches that are more malleable to kind of weave in there. Okay. And so again, that's where they spend the winter, and that's where their babies are born, their kits. Yeah. So yeah, that keeps them. Here's a whole family of the kits. Aren't they sweet? So that lodge in the middle of the water helps them to avoid a lot of predators in general. Like we said, the bears and wolves and coyotes and such. And here's one of them. Now you can always tell if a beaver chewed, the beaver sign is these chew marks are sort of at an angle. And yeah, so here again, you can see that this is the angle they always cut at right here. And so it makes it, there it goes. It makes it really obvious that it was made by a beaver. So yeah, and they're going to eat this inner part here that's softer than usually the bark. Jenny says, thank you. This is so engaging about them and using their paws as tools. Yeah, it was just so special. I think I probably watched them till it was almost too dark to hike back. And I was a couple miles down the trail from the lodging I was staying at. I actually spent 4 summers taking classes and teaching in Colorado at the Rocky Mountain Biological Lab, and that's where that was. So anyway, you can read the whole story on my website. I linked that here, christineelder.com/the industrious beaver, and you'll see a lot more facts in there too. Okay, all righty. So then we're almost ready for sketching. Just a few more things here. So they build the 2 things. They build the lodge that they live in, and then they build the dam. And those dams, again, are fairly waterproof, and they can be quite wide. And again, they work on those year after year, and they're strengthened by that mud that they put in there with their hands. What was I going to say? The reason they do that is to, give them more habitat. So it slows the water down. It floods the riparian area and makes that area above the dam quieter. And then that's where they put their lodge, is above the dam in that ponded area. Sorry, I keep losing where my mouse is. There we go. So these actions, especially of building the dams, they are considered vital ecological engineers and keystone species, because when they're building these, so the process of building these, again, slows the water. It kind of deepens the water table. And it's also actually been proven that it reduces wildfire anywhere near that area compared to where there aren't any beavers. And if you know, we've had a lot of devastating wildfires that are above what we would call natural over the last 10 years or so. And so where there are beavers, they really do help to reduce wildfire. And then also just backing up, this quiet ponded area gives a lot more aquatic habitat for fish and amphibians and other mammals like beavers and muskrat and apodontia and other things. And then it also just increases this riparian area. So they are really considered important ecological engineers. So it's also going to be, reducing bank flooding because the water's going more slowly. And yeah, like I said, raising the water table. Okay, so we have learned so much. Now we're going to sketch some. I don't have quite as many videos as I did the other day for Costa Rica, and I hope some of you, I know some of you were in that workshop, so I haven't been able to, observe beavers in the wild as much. But anyway, we're going to do a little bit, and remember our general field sketching tips. And this, of course, is not a beaver, it's a California sea lion. But same idea, we want to really observe before we start sketching. We want to keep our marks very light and loose. Keep that pencil moving. Don't get too much of a perfectionist about it. Avoid erasing until the end. And in fact, today I'm sketching with a pen. And I also, love sketching with colored pencils, as I've shown with you before, especially the what do we call it? Oh yeah, the Prismacolor Very Thins. And then, ground truthing often, that's a scientific field biology term for just meaning that you're constantly looking back and forth from your subject to your sketchbook so that you're not drawing from just memory or imagination. And, it's really important to enjoy the process of learning and not be too hard on yourself about, what you end up having. And so let me show you. So these are just some of my quick field sketches from some of the photos and videos from today. So you can just see I was using a pen here and just doing a couple minutes each. And so, that's what I'm hoping we'll have here today. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. What else here? Okay. And again, we've had a chance to look at our subjects from all angles to best see all of their anatomical features. So, like in this case, this photo is really a good photo showing the fingers and the nails. And our next two videos are going to show those hands, a bit. Let me get a drink of water here. So you see, again, they have those four fingers or paws or whatever you want to call them. And so usually when I'm drawing that, I will kind of draw a circle to indicate kind of the length and width of that paw area. And then I'll draw two lines or sometimes three, and then, create the claws from there. And then here you can see a little bit of the pad underneath too. And then noticing, again, they've got really small ears. They've got small eyes that are set really high on their head, especially from this angle when this one's looking straight at you. And then their cute little nose with the nostrils on either side. Their mouth and lips, which have a lot of melanin in them. So they're really dark, like the nose. And then noticing all those really cute whiskers. Okay, so here's our first one. So again, looking at it first before we start the video, this is the easier one of the two. And so, you can really pretty obviously see this silhouette. So, don't get all, scared about drawing a cute little face first. Just look at this silhouette and remember imagining that skeleton underneath. So imagining this is that arched vertebral column. And then this is kind of more the neck area and the head area. And, they have also noticing sort of this Roman nose and a really squared off face, which is really common in the rodents. So, a side view of a squirrel or a porcupine can look a lot like this. And then the hands here are eating something and they're sort of submerged. And then, but you notice here, this is their shoulder. So you can almost see the way the fur goes around that's bulging out because that is their shoulder. And here's their elbow here. And then back here, you can kind of see some shadowing where the hips are. And the knee is probably right in here. So you see how much more this area back here is in shadow. And then noticing this really smooth line against the water compared to the kind of zigzagginess of the fur, although this fur is pretty wet compared to the next one we're going to look at, which is a little bit drier and fuzzier. But, again, we always want to kind of think about the internal anatomy and that skeleton and quote unquote, know more than we show, like our colleague, John Muir Logs talks about. All righty, so let's start this one. Again, I chose these two videos because the animals aren't moving too much, so it's a little bit easier. Okay, so who's ready? Tell me in the chat box. Oh, good. Our timing is just perfect. I didn't want to keep you much past an hour, so we're doing really good here. Okay, let's go. Oh, wait, sorry. So first I would just, draw that silhouette, that arched back. Oh, looking at you now. Isn't that cute? Okay, let's do that again and we'll focus on just here. I like that one. That one easily shows the mouth open, so that's pretty easy and doesn't show too many details of the hands, so you can't get too intimidated. So with this one, let's practice just sketching that, starting with that fairly easy silhouette. And I'll draw along with you. And he or she may or may not move. So just kind of making it challenging for you. So I'm going to draw along with you. So I can kind of give you an idea of what kind of details I can get. You might hear my pencil moving. Oops. Why does that keep going forward? There we go. Okay, I'll pause that again. So once you just get that arched back and then the neck and the head, just get that silhouette first, and then you can start working on the face more, which is the more engaging part. And just noticing the relative proportions of the eyes and the ears, where they are. And again, that's sort of, what do you call it? Sort of like a Roman nose profile. And remind me to have a share at the end. There's no audio with this, but you can imagine how loud it would be if you could hear it chomping. So even when something moves a bit like this, that gives you some more information. Like you can see the eyes a bit better and the nose. Even if you weren't going to sketch it from that angle, it would still be helpful for you to see those parts. Well, that's a good one there. It's got the mouth really nicely wide open. And it obviously looks like it's holding a little bit of a stick or something. Okay, so maybe like 30 more seconds. I don't want you to get too in the weeds with this. Don't forget to add the cute little whiskers, especially the closer set. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay, wrapping things up. All right, so this is what I got. And I didn't actually add, you might want to add a little bit of water. Kind of like that maybe. Jacqueline, you're wondering where these photos were taken. The water looks so clear and clean. Yes. Okay. These were photos I purchased, actually, or videos I purchased. And that is one of my many expenses on hosting these workshops. So I did want to remind you that donations are essential for me to continue. And I did just now put a link to my website where you can donate via PayPal or Venmo. Okay, here's the next one. So this is looking the other way, and this beaver is kind of facing us a bit. It's almost more of a 3/4 view, which I often suggest you try doing because that gives you the most information about the species. So you can kind of see some of the physical characteristics of the side of the animal, like their body here and this sort of clumps of wet fur. But you can also see a little bit more of the front of the face and this nice paw structure compared to the last video. And then, when we're looking at the paws, again, remember there's 4 fingers with pretty short claws. And when you're drawing those, you might want to just kind of draw an oval to indicate the size and the shape of that hand, as it were. And then drawing a line down the middle and then a line on either side. And that will start you off with the 4 toes or 4 fingers, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so, and then again, you see fairly high placed small eyes and this cute little ear. Okay, hopefully you're ready. And let's go. And I'll pause this. First one, I just have you watch the whole video with the second one. Isn't that cute coming in there? And then they say hi to each other and then they go away. Okay, so let's just watch this part where the one is just eating. And again, you want to start with just the silhouette of the body, so kind of the head and the back, and then start working on the feeding behavior and the details of the head. Trying to get a good one. How's that? Right. That's a good one. The hands are pretty good details there. Okay, so let's try that one. So again, just looking at the whole animal, kind of what is the shape of it in the water. And then the relative size of the head compared to the body. But it's kind of like just one big arc is what I would start with. One big arc and then the smoother line along the water. And then separate the back arc from the head arc. And then once you get the head, just penciling in the general location of the ear and the eye and the nose. Noticing that ear is kind of right behind where the sort of dip is that separates the head. And also kind of noticing when you start on the head, noticing where things are. So like the ear is highest and largest, and then the eye is kind of horizontally lined up with the middle of the ear and the top of the nose. And then the nose is below, and you can see 2 nostrils. And then you see the pair of hands, and kind of thinking about how big those are relatively to the face. Maybe they're about as big as between the nostril and the eye. So just thinking of where to basically place that stuff before you start adding any details. Okay, I'm drawing along with you in case you can hear it. Here you can see the ear anatomy a lot better than you could in the last photo. And since the face is the most interesting part, you know, because it could take you a long time to do all the fur, I just like to focus on the face. And then again, we've got those hands, the animal's left hand, which is a little bit hidden, and then the right hand, which is a little bit bigger. Okay, yeah, the hands are the most challenging. Noticing it's eating this orange thing. This might be a captive individual. I don't know what they're eating. Again, noticing there's the 4 fingers. You can see. Of course, I'm freezing this here, and it's a little bit slightly different position than before, but you know, that's what's going to happen with trying to draw a live animal in the field. And I notice we can only see a couple claws from the animal's left hand, and you don't see the ones from the right hand because they're grasping this orange thing. Who knows what it is? Okay, that's what I got so far. All righty, so I hope you enjoyed that. Let me go back to this. Okay, another thing I suggest you practice, especially if you're at a park or a zoo or aquarium or natural history museum, is sometimes there's pretty realistic sculptures. And here at our museum, we have beautiful, large, life-size sculptures of not only beavers, this little beaver family here that I was sketching, but also elk and deer and otters. So that's another fun thing to do in the field. Tell me in the chat box if you've ever tried or practiced sketching from sculptures, some of which are very real. Okay, well, I got to get going. And thank you so much again for joining me today. Okay, ciao.